All right, you're most welcome once again to today's mentorship. And basically today we want to learn more about how to pass interviews. And what I'm requesting, if you're part of this session, is to share with me what are some of your challenges when it comes to interviews, and from your experience, from the interviews that you have done and you've actually ended up not getting any response from the people that have interviewed you. What do you think have been your challenges in that line, and how do you think, what kind of areas would you want to be this mentorship to really focus on, especially from your experience? Thank you. So Susan had highlighted she wants to give this verbally. Others, you can use the chat box. Please, Susan, go on.
Thank you very much, Coach Samuel. Now for me, I had a scenario, I think it was yesterday. I did the interview on Microsoft Teams. I appeared online in time. They asked me the several important questions. Tell me about yourself. I was able to answer that. Tell technical questions were also answered. And then the challenge came at 2 p.m. They called me and we decided to talk about the money. When it came to the money, he was giving me just an increment of 100,000 on my net, where I was working, what I was getting previously. And I felt that the new company, when you ask around, how much do you get? They are getting more by 600,000. Of course, the starting rate is more, like an extra 500,000. And I wondered, why are these people actually squeezing me to this point? Because they know I'm desperate and I want a job quickly because I'm moving out from another job. Okay. Everyone knows it, that the company the company is exiting, and they are using it as leverage to squeeze me. So I told him, I cannot take that offer. I would like to think about it. I will call you again. I kept quiet. I thought about it. I called a few friends here and there. And then I said no. Something kept telling me no. Tell him to increase the offer. Now you see, there's this thing of net and gross. Okay?
Yeah.
The thing about net and gross is you have to be able to calculate very fast, but also at what margin? Because if I'm getting, say, before in the workplace, before I was getting 500,000, and I come here and I want maybe say 1,000,000 shillings, how do I negotiate all that quickly so that I can say that if I'm moving from this old place but to this new place, they get good money. But remember, in the old place, they have been shortchanging me, okay? And I'm having another meeting or interview tomorrow, and I'm thinking, this new place, they're giving good money. Now this side, they've been shortchanging me. How am I going to handle that? Okay. In the event that they ask me, bring your pay slip, and then I'm thinking, oh my God, how am I going to handle this? You know, you don't want to lie, but at the same time, you need the money. Okay. But at the same time, you don't want to be shortchanged in this new place. Okay. And all those questions like running through my head, and I'm like, okay, I think I really, really need help with that. There's also the thing about since we're in COVID era, post-COVID era, we're doing more of online
interviews.
more of online interviews. Yes, I need I think a refresher course on what is expected, backgrounds, dressing, questions asked, how do I go about the critical questions, how about there's those questions they say, what are the proper questions to ask the other person, right? Because there's a point in time they ask you, can you ask any questions? You don't want to ask a stupid question that may be out of context or range. Right now I have, those are the starting ones. In the middle, I think I'll have more questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much for your question. Thanks so much. the rest that have just joined us, you've basically found us when I tried to open the platform for each of you to share with me what has been your experience with your past interviews and what are the key areas you think you've had challenges with. And by challenges means from your analysis for the interviews that you actually did, what are those areas you think have been the reason why your recruitment has only stopped at the interview level and has not surpassed that level? Okay, so you can either use the chat box, or you can also maybe unmute and be able to share that. You may not have done interviews before, but there's a point, I think you have a challenge. I think one of the questions came through from Ivan throughout our process. Ivan, you may also bring up your question on interviews here. Thank you. So you can unmute if possible. Anyone wants to go first? Ruben, we can't hear you. I think, Ruben, you're having challenges with your network. You need to click on the microphone. All right. At least maybe I can do for Susan first. Now, one of the things that I want to comment about, especially for in your scenario, Susan, and I think you've already shared with me about your experience, the fact that you're basically joining in from a different organization, and even the other company actually sees that you basically you a bit desperate, just like the way you indicated it. Okay, so that happened.
So that's it. Abantu bakomplaininga.
Okay, so I was trying to ask Susan about if you had found out about the salary, the other side.
Yes, I did. I did find out.
Was it the same salary, or it was a little lower?
It was different, totally different, much higher. The other side is much higher, and I was getting lower.
Okay, but I'm saying like finding out how much the organization pays for similar roles, the ones that you were joining.
Yes, I did find out.
So what they were offering you, was it in line? Was it similar, or it was a little lower?
It was a little lower.
Okay. So
given the fact that we're in post-COVID era, yeah, and most companies are cutting costs, they want to cut their costs, of course. So they'll offer you something, a bit lower. So you have to have the art of negotiating the value. You have to know your value and what you're bringing to the company, so that you don't take the first offer, And I have colleagues of mine they accepted the first offer. So I'm even wondering, in these things, is it bad to accept the first offer? Okay, now I'm learning that it is bad, because for me, I was offered something different, yet we're going to do the same role, because I negotiated. Why? Okay, yes, that is it.
Okay, fine. Thanks so much, Susan, for sharing. I think if I'm to comment on that, and this is from professional experience, and also as a recruiter, but as well as also as a candidate, just like the way you are. One of the things that I want to say is, when you're joining an organization, or when you're being asked on how much you want to be paid, I think one of the key principles is to have in mind is the amount of money that they are paying me. Is it an amount of money that I'm happy about? Like you indicated, you felt like the amount was really not really your worth, okay? And in that perspective means that in most cases, you're going to earn this amount of money, not for a period that is less than, let's say, a year. Yes, some positions, of course, based on the negotiation, they can actually tell you that maybe this amount of money is only up to 6 months, okay? And then after the 6 months, after the probation period, your salary is revised. Now, if that's the line of discussion, the decision may also vary from there. But if the salary they actually want to give you is a salary that does not have any other communications around it. Some organizations, because they need you, they say, we are paying you this amount of money, but then we'll have other kind of benefits that come with this position. So again, you realize that the salary they are giving you is may look lower, but when you again add in the allowances that are coming with the role, you actually out there and getting something. Like you indicated, in most cases, some of these offers, in most cases, because the employers think that when they speak of the gross amount, it is something that will blind you, because you're able to, when somebody says you're going to earn 2 million gross, even when you know very well that the 2 million is actually about, let's say, maybe 1.7 or 1.68 around there, you know very well that the 2 million will just be in your mind and you feel like it's actually 2 million. So the key guideline here is try your best to negotiate, okay? Don't be afraid, because when you don't want to accept something that you don't feel for, because at the end of the day, yes, our key number one motivation for doing our work is the salary, the pay. If the salary is not something that is good enough, you're going to find yourself jumping into an organization, and within 6 months, you're actually looking for an alternative job. Yet ideally, you feel you're joining this organization, you want to learn as much as you can. And then also, if there's an opportunity for you to grow, you want to grow within the organization. So that's why the amount of money that you accept also matters a lot. So negotiation is not bad, negotiate. But also, as you negotiate, like I said, find out more about how much people of that same role are paid in that organization, so that you don't really have to stretch so much with your negotiation, unless you're coming maybe with a special skill, or you're coming with a great experience. And you also look at the perspective of the competition as well, okay? Of course, you can get an idea of how you stand in the recruitment process, okay? How competitive you are in the recruitment process. So if you're in that position, then you can easily negotiate based on that. Either you're asking for maybe a high amount compared to what they are offering, but the principle should be, especially when you're coming from a different organization, and let's say where you're not desperate, I think the key principle that I usually use is the salary that you're negotiating for should actually be your next salary in this current role. I'll give you an example. If I'm an accountant right now, and the next salary in the organization where I'm working is, let's say, maybe I'm earning right now, I'm earning, let's say, maybe 1.5. And the next salary in my career line is, let's say, maybe 3 million. I'll tailor my negotiation at least around the 3 million, because I know that if I join this organization, even if it's joining at maybe a lower role, I have nothing much I'm losing by actually doing what? By actually taking on this offer, okay? Compared to where I am currently. So it's very important that you also look at where you're living. What is your salary scale like? Because it is the same way that next salary that you're going to get in the other company it should reflect more of, if at all you had stayed in this other organization, what would have been your pay? Just in case you had stayed and maybe a promotion had come your way, what would it have been like? Okay. So it's when you're making that decision, yours is to look at what is exactly do I need. And at the end of the day, like I said, it will take you about a year, minimally a year in most organizations, at least 80% of the organizations, for you to get a salary increment. Some organizations, even when you find out, one of the other key principles you may do is find out from people in the organization and see how is the salary increment policy. Like, after how long do they increase people's salary in such organizations, okay? So that gives you a background on what kind of salary to negotiate for, because if from what you've heard from other people that they don't increase salaries in such an organization, even after a year, yours is to make sure that the salary you're negotiating for is something that you're comfortable with earning even after 2 years, okay? Because ideally, you joining this organization does not mean that you always find your way out, just like the way you're joining it. In some cases, you find yourself that you're in this organization for, let's say, 2-3 years, and you're not finding an offer outside. So as you make the big decision to say, I'm now moving to this organization, yours is to make sure that this organization I'm joining, what I'm going to earn in terms of my next salary is a salary that I'm comfortable with, that even if I had remained in this other organization, it is the salary that I would earn maybe for my next promotion or around there, may not be. So that is the key principle. But don't be afraid to do it, to negotiate what you think. And one of the things that I see, even if you negotiate a higher pay, okay, and the organization feels they really need you and they can pay you maybe a lower amount of money, they will get back to you. They will actually reach out to you and ask you. I'll give you an example. One time, I think I'd applied for a job in Spear Motors, okay? I'd applied for a job in Spear Motors, and the first interview that I went for, it was a manager role. So the first interview I went for, this was actually the second interview because it was PwC that was recruiting for them. So this first interview I went for, they asked me, how much do you want us to pay you? Okay. So I told them I want to be paid. I asked them for 7 million shillings. Okay. I asked them for 7 million shillings. Now, the 7 million shillings, of course, that one I put into all factors, the role I was going to do, how much I was earning at that point in time, and exactly also looking at the fact that I'm going to be in this organization, for example, for the next 2 years, and how does this reflect, also based on the expenses that I will incur in terms of transport, fuel, and so on. So yes, they took on the figure, and of course, I know a manager role. Of course, I looked at this organization because this is a private company, private organization, and I was moving from a multinational organization where I believe that the salaries are relatively okay. So I was like, will these guys really give me this amount of money? Okay. Because I just looked at the face of the business, and I was like, maybe they can give me the amount of money. Okay. So I gave them that figure. So when it came to second interview, okay, of course I knew now they needed me. Okay, they needed me. So I again reflected on the amount of money that I had said in the first interview. Okay, and I was like, does this really? So when I went back for the second interview, I actually asked them about other benefits that come with the amount of money that they wanted to give me, because by the time I went for the second interview, they had actually made a decision to hire me and give me the 7 million that I'd asked for. So when I went to that interview, they re-asked me that same question of how much would you like us to pay you, okay? as if I had not answered it in the first time. So that is when we went to the discussion of the dynamics. What are some of the other benefits that my role attracts? Okay, are there any allowances? Is there any retirement benefit scheme? Do I have medical insurance? And if I have medical insurance, what are some of whom do you pay for when it comes to medical insurance? All those things matter a lot, because you don't want to join an organization that you have a better salary, but when you look at the benefits, you actually have a better benefits where you are. Okay, so that's why it's very important that you analyze and make sure that you're making a bigger decision for your career that is in that line of where you exactly want to be. Okay, so that is what I can basically comment when it comes to that aspect. So some companies, of course, may ask for previous payslip, and this is the principle, guys. Of course, some companies want to base on the salary that you're getting from the previous company. And some people sometimes want to lie onto what they are earning, but I would want to say that remain honest, okay? Remain honest throughout, because they're going to ask you for some of these pay slips. In one or the other, the world is round. You may actually realize that there's actually somebody who has worked in the organization, who has insider information, okay? So sometimes they may also test your integrity as well. So I want to say that, yes, sometimes we need the jobs, but we want to be as honest as possible and highlight to them that, okay, my pay slip may be indicating this, but I have other benefits that may not reflect through the pay slip that I actually earn. So you're able to negotiate from that perspective, rather than saying I'm earning, let's say 4 million, and they ask you for a pay slip, and then you have to look for somebody, a Nasaro, to design for you a pay slip that has that amount of money. So like that. So make sure that the salary that you're actually indicating is a salary you're comfortable with. And if they ask you about your current salary, make sure that you tell them the current salary. But in case you feel your current salary is the way it will make the other person feel like you have less value, speak about the other benefits that may not be within the salary, okay, that the other company may be actually giving you, okay? So that is something that you may want. But also, of course, in the same way, yes, I may be earning a very small salary, okay? I'm earning a very small salary, but this is based on the budget of the organization I'm working with. When I look at the qualifications and the experience that I bring to this new role, I feel, let's say, the 70 million or the 2 million or the 3 million, 4 million is actually worth it. And in the same way, I believe I want to give value to the organization. Like I indicated, you don't want to join an organization at a pay that you're not comfortable with, and within 6 months, you're actually looking for another new job. You looking for another new job within 6 months at all will actually affect your CV, because somebody who has just worked for a role within 6 months and looking for a new role, anyone who is hiring will feel something fishy about your career moves, okay? They'll be worried. They may also think that you actually also come to the organization 6 months and you find your way out, okay? So that is something that you may need to consider to make sure that it's not affecting you, okay? Yeah. And as well as, of course, somebody asks, do companies actually ask for previous pay slips? They do ask. I've worked in, I've applied to some organizations where I've been asked the pay slips. And the reason why they ask for sometimes the pay slips is to do a confirmatory test of whether you actually work for these organizations, okay? Sometimes it's not about the amount, by the way, but they want to confirm that you actually work with these organizations, and also want to confirm, let's say, the salary that you might have included within the interview process. But I want to tell you that organizations that need you, that value the skills and experience that you bring to the table, will definitely give you even a double of what you've been earning the other side, as long as that is their scale. Now, one of the things that you need to also understand with organizations, and that's why you do some background check even before you go for interviews, to understand how much such organizations pay, and do they have a standard scale, okay? Because some organizations have a standard scale that even if you're coming and been earning which amount of salary, they will actually give you that amount of money. So this whole aspect of how much can we pay is basically is just to make it a procedure, but they will actually pay the other amount unless maybe you're asking for a higher. Now, some other organizations have salary ranges as well, okay? And you may also want to know what some of those salary ranges can actually be. But if you don't have access to that information, I think the key principle is how much are you earning right now? What does your next role look like, maybe in the organization where you are, and how much do they pay? So you know that even if I move, I will not regret and say, I wish I waited for the other promotion and then I'm crossing. In the same way, you're also looking at, am I comfortable receiving this salary for the next 2 years? I think that is the principle. Because if you're not comfortable, you don't have control of your salary, of how the level at which your salary increases. So you want to make sure that you negotiating rightly, okay? Yeah. Okay. Ivan is saying something here. Coach, what if you don't and you have failed to know what exactly they pay? That's what I've indicated. Look at you as an individual. How much would you be comfortable to earn for the next 2 years without any increment and without finding a new job? Okay, that should be the key principle. And what are you happy? What amount of money would you earn and you're actually happy about? Okay, start from there. Even if you say an amount that is higher than what they actually offer, they'll get back to you and tell you, Ivan, we're actually paying maybe 1 million instead of the 2 million. But then they will tell you, but this salary actually increases every year, so you have an opportunity to increase. This salary comes with a 13th check, which you will actually receive, okay? This salary comes with medical insurance for you and 4 of your children. This salary comes with an education grant, just in case you want to upgrade. So they'll be able to tell you all these other benefits, and that will help you to make your decision. So every time they front you a salary, for example, for Suzanne's case, when they front you and say, this is what we have, your number one question should be, what else comes with this salary? Because that helps you to make a key decision. What other benefits come with this salary, okay? And then also, one of the other things that you also need to look at is the potential for this salary to grow. And like I said, finding out this background information of, or maybe at how long do they take to actually increase this pay, okay? And then also looking at the career movement as well, because like I told you, the salary may be low, okay? The entry salary may be low, but you know that you have the skills and qualifications that will actually give you a faster growth in this company. So you might want to close your eyes onto the lower salary, but know that if I'm joining this organization, okay? If I'm joining this organization and I have a better stand, I can actually increase this salary. I have joined one organization before where I entered at a very low pay, and I found myself getting more than a double of my salary after 1.5 years. Okay, so that is something that is possible for you as well. Okay, yeah. So yeah, we can discuss more about that. Ivan, you had some questions that you're indicating. Could you just unmute and maybe ask those?
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, first and foremost, I would like to thank you, Coach, for having reserved such a time to attend to us. Unfortunately, though yesterday I missed, but good enough I've got the recording. So now I had my questions prior, but I think I was waiting to get a chance or opportunity to share them with you. I think one of them, it was answered as we've been on our way learning, whereby it was on about, tell us about yourself. And I know you tried to talk about it for several times. Second, there is a question which they always ask, that what motivates you? That's one. And they always trick you and they ask, what is your weakness? Third, where do you see yourself maybe in 10 to 5 years? Lastly, why do you think that maybe among all the candidates, you're the one who fits this job? Or why do you think that you're the one who qualified to take this opportunity? I think those are the questions I had. Thank you, Coach.
All right, thank you, Ivan. Maybe just to answer this, and maybe they will be able to help us even as we go on with this conversation. Now, the question of tell us about yourself. I earlier indicated that this is one of the questions that you should actually go to the interview well prepared with, okay? And why I'm saying so is that this question will always be asked. Sometimes it can be asked in different ways, but it's definitely the question that the interviewer wants to hear your response about, okay? So, and most cases, some people miss out on this question of tell us about yourself, or why should we hire you, or why do you think you're the best candidate for this job? You need to, just like the way we looked at our personal statement, okay, when it comes to CVs, just like the way you've looked at, let's say, now, the key principle is to answer such a question, you need to understand your job description that you're going for, okay? And then you also need to understand the organization you're going for. You also need to understand how your skills and experiences, okay, relate to the job. And of course, in the same way there, yours is to also do what we call include your unique selling point. Like, you have looked at the job, and is that one thing that they have indicated as a requirement for the job that you think you actually have that maybe the rest of people may not have, okay? So that is one of the things. But as you answer this question, the key idea why the person has asked this question, or why the interview panel needs to hear from you about this question, is the fact that they want to know if you're actually the right candidate that they need to hire, okay? So that is why you need to align your qualifications, your skills, your experience to what? To what job they are advertising or they want to hire you for, okay? So when you're preparing for this role, for this question, make sure that you go back to your JD. And you know, with this JD, even when you are 30 minutes towards the interview, like we said, go at least a little early to the interview venue, make sure that during these minutes, you're actually going through the job description. What exactly does this job entail? And what are some of the skills, qualifications that they are looking out for? And then match this with your CV, because in most cases, the people that are asking for these interview questions have your CVs with them, okay? So yours is to look at what is your experience and how does this fit into the job that you're applying for. And that's why you need to also look at key things like, what are some of your achievements that you've done in the past that align with this job, okay? So that is why I want you to make sure that you don't forget, just like the way you do for the personal statement when you're crafting your CV, is the same way that you should make sure that you're doing when you're getting to that question. I'll give you an example. If, for example, I am maybe I've applied for, say, maybe a finance manager role, maybe let's say in MTN, okay? Now, the key things that I want to basically include there is speak about, let's say, my professional experience, okay? Speak about my education background, speak about my skills, speak about my values, speak about how I'm passionate to actually do the job that they want me to do, okay? So maybe I can basically start by this and say, maybe my name is Samuel Ibanda. I'm a certified public accountant, currently working with Save the Children as a finance lead, okay? I have worked with other organizations, so I go ahead to list the organizations I've worked with and respective positions I've worked with. I then come to now my academic credentials. I hold maybe the certified public accountant qualification, as well as a bachelor's degree in commerce, okay? And then I get down into maybe other certificates, related certificates that I've held. And then once I'm done with my experience, my skills, and my education, now I get down onto, I align it on the advertised job, okay, or the job that they are recruiting me for. So I'm saying in relation to the job that they have called me for, I'm able to relate my past responsibilities, okay? I say maybe throughout my career, I have been a team lead of the finance function. And one of the key things that I have done is I've developed my team to be able to provide the right support to the organization. And in relation to the job that you are recruiting for, I believe that I can transfer the same skills to help you grow a strong team. And if maybe this growth in the strong team was part of, let's say, the responsibilities, maybe team leadership was part of the responsibilities. So I'm able to align. And if, for example, maybe the role also requires, let's say, things like maybe financial reporting and maybe statutory requirements, then I'm able to also relate and say maybe throughout my experience, I've been able to handle taxes. For example, I was a key tax person in this organization. And one of the key achievements that I achieved in that role was to make sure that I changed the company status. By the time I joined, the company had a fine of over 1 billion shillings, and I was able to help the organization clear that 1 billion to only a fine of 200 million, okay? Based on my tax expertise and based on my previous experience. So you're able to think through what exactly does the other person need? What are they exactly looking out for? And you're able to bring in your education, your skills, able to bring in other kind of things that you think may also help you to, let's say, to be hired, okay? So that is why it's very important. Another person may just start and say, maybe thank you for inviting me for this interview. Maybe I've applied for this job because I have these respective skills. And also after you've listed the skills, then you come on to your experience in terms of the organization you've worked with, of course, relevant experience, okay? And then you're able to bring in now your values and say, maybe I'm positive, I'm enthusiastic, I'm a loyal person who understands the role, what the role exactly needs. And then you're able to cascade down and also tell them about other things that you think they may want. And of course, this comes on to what the skills and the requirements of the job have been. Things like maybe I can work well under pressure. I am a very good team player. I easily take up responsibility. All those you can easily embed in this all when you're trying to respond. And like I said, when you're answering this question, yours is to market yourself. Yours is to sell yourself. So say anything that you think puts you ahead. And sometimes even the recruiters leave you speak as much as you can until when they stop you, then you can be able to stop. And then from there, they can now ask you other questions. So that is what you should basically do. And one of the things that I usually say, don't go into I'm a brother to this one, I'm a son to Mr. and Mrs. That is your personal information and it is not needed. And like I said, the personal information that you may want to include is only personal information that you think best suits you to the job. For example, if, for example, the job, when it comes to what they included in the job description was to do with maybe somebody must be married, okay? You're able to include that as well in telling the other person about yourself. That maybe you can end, I'm also married, okay, to of course one wife and maybe one child, if in case you have a child. And then in case maybe also this role also had a location requirement in it, you're able to bring it that maybe you actually come from this area, so that somebody is able to relate. Because one of the things that you need to know is that they tell us about yourself, or why do you think you're the best candidate? This question will actually determine the next questions, or it will also help you give the first impression. if you actually fail to give a good impression within these first minutes, you actually find yourself in a situation where you're going to take a little shorter time and you'll be pushed out, and another candidate will come in. Okay, so yours is to read the mind, but as well as you know that if I'm going for this question, this is what you can even rehearse some of these things. You can write it down. You can write it down and say, this should be like this. I want to start with my experience, and I want to add on my education. I want to add in on my skills. I want also to add on my achievements. Then I'll speak about maybe a little part of my personal, okay? My personal information. Like I said, some of your personal information may create a kind of connection, actually. If, for example, you're joining an organization that is children-oriented, you just included that you're a mother, okay? Somebody is a bit connected. Like, you want to make sure that there's also that connection you want to create. If you're, let's say, maybe you're a Christian who is joining a Christian organization, that will also create some element of connection, okay? So you need to read the environment, read the organization you're going for, read about their values as well, okay? Because if you're speaking about accountability, teamwork, and these are some of their values, you're able to know that as every time you speak about them, then you're creating your account in their minds is actually being credited, okay? So that is very important for you there. And then one of the other things that I want to also highlight, I think one of the other questions that you asked was to do with why do you think you're the best candidate? Now, like I said, the question of why do you think you're the best candidate is not in any way even much different from, unless if they have already asked you, tell us about yourself, okay? And maybe this comes in next, but if this is maybe the first question, or it is one of the questions and they have not asked you any question of tell us about yourself, then whatever you just answered, whatever you would answer on what tell us about yourself is what you craft around here. Now, here, when they ask you about why do you think you're the best candidate, yours is not to, of course, go and tell them about your experience, about, okay, yours not tell them about your experience directly, but basically do a tailoring of what are your skills, okay? And how do these relate to the job? What are your qualifications, okay? Now, and the same way, of course, when they're asking you for the best candidate, one of the other tricks that you need to bring in here are your achievements, okay? Because when it's say, why do you think you're the best candidate? All they're trying to do is what is unique about you? Why do you think we need to hire you, okay? So that is why, where you come in with, these are my skills, okay? Maybe if I'm trying to respond, why do you think you're the best candidate? And say, thank you so much for this question. I think I'm the best candidate because I have developed these kind of skills that I believe relate very well with the advertised job, okay? I also have these ABCD qualifications that have given me a kind of knowledge and a kind of great understanding of exactly what this role entails, okay? And then you're able to bring in the perspective of also your experience. Also, within my previous role, I've actually done a lot of ABCD roles and responsibilities. Of course, the roles that relate to the job. And I have achieved A, B, C, and D. If you're in sales, maybe you've been able to grow sales from maybe $2 million to maybe $4 million. If maybe you're in finance, you've been able to cut costs from let's say maybe your operation costs were over, let's say, maybe 20 billion, and now they came. You may not speak about figures, you can speak about percentages, of course, because of confidentiality. So you need to create something that you think puts you, it's your unique selling point on the other side, okay? And from there, you're able to convince the other person, and you should be confident. I think one of the things that you need to do is when you're getting to any interview, make sure that you develop confidence, okay? Because there's a lot that they are reading on your face, even when you're lying, by the way. The people that are interviewing can easily know that this person is actually not telling the truth, okay? And like, that's why sometimes they ask you a question and you're going to take some time to think about it. Some questions come promptly and you have to think very fast and relate. You get it. So you need to develop that confidence and make sure that you prepare enough, okay? And by preparing enough is do extensive study about the organization, okay, that you want to join. Do extensive reading, understanding what each role and responsibility that is on the job description entails. Do an extensive study of as well of how your experience matches with the job, okay? Because that is something that you want to keep on highlighting there and there every time you ask some of these questions, okay? So it's very key. So why do you think you're the best candidate for the job? And don't say, of course, don't speak about ill about the other candidates and say maybe I'm the youngest, maybe you've seen them when you're coming through for the interview, and maybe you say, don't speak ill about the other candidates, okay? It's about you. Speak about you and sell yourself, because it's only you in the interview room, and it's you who owns up those qualifications, and it's you who owns up the skills that you have and the experience that you bring to the table, okay? But one of the other things that I want also to tell you is if you can find out more information about the organization, especially maybe their current challenges, that especially for people who are working there, make sure that you use that as an advantage to your response, okay? Because when you speak about something that connects well with them, maybe they are moving from, let's say, maybe one system, they are moving from QuickBooks maybe to SAP, and you're so good at SAP, bring that up, because that sells you to the other person. So that is why every time you have a chance to find more about the organization before you actually do the interview, you can find somebody and ask them, tell me about what exactly, maybe if they're in the same role that you want to go for the interview for, ask them about their day-to-day work, ask them about what are some of the projects that they are working on within the organization, so that you have a good understanding of the organization. Now, when you conversation is so much tailored on the way the organization stands, there's a way that you connect. Basically, you create that kind of connection between you and the other person. The other person feels like this is the person we are looking out for. This person understands us. And that's why you see, when you're reading about the organization, they may not ask you about the mission, the vision of the organization, because they know even the employees that are working in these organizations don't understand some of these things. So you who is actually going for this, you just reading their mission, their vision, their values, you may not have to cram this, but it's giving you a perspective of what is this environment. It's very sad for you to move from a private sector and you're doing an interview in an NGO world, and you're speaking about, if you're an accountant, you're speaking about things like profit and loss, okay? When this organization is totally don't even make profit and loss, okay? So understand your industry and understand the conversations that you're actually going to make towards that given interview. Because if somebody feels that you've done your good research about them, okay, that you even know about maybe the recent award that they actually did, they actually earned, or if you know about maybe a recent project that they took on, or a recent market launch they just made, a recent product they introduced into the market, somebody's really feels you a person who has actually done a lot of preparation, and they would really want to know more about what you bring on the table, okay? Yeah. I think one of the other questions you asked, Ivan, could you remind me what was the other question that you asked?
Hello?
Yes.
The other question was about what is your weakness? What motivates you?
Okay. Okay.
And where do you want to be within maybe either 10 years or 5 years?
Okay. So your weakness, what motivates you, and where you want to be in the next 5 years. Okay. So I'll start with the weakness. Okay. I'll start with the weakness. Now, one of the key principles is never say you don't have any weakness, because there is no human being that doesn't have a weakness. Okay, we are all human. Now, one of the things that you should do when it asks you, tell us about your weaknesses, is don't say a weakness that is directly key to the role, like one that is the opposite of a skill that is required for the job. For example, I'll give you an example. If you're applying, for example, for a maybe journalist role, and you're going to be a writer, you don't want to say, I have challenges with writing. If you're an accountant, you don't want to say you have challenges with analyzing things, or have a challenge with numbers. You have challenges with mathematics. Okay, you need to understand that this person understands that you have some weaknesses. Okay, but they also understand the fact that they want to get a honest feedback or a honest response from you. Okay, now there are some responses that you can actually give that will not have any much effect, okay, onto the other person, saying maybe you're not the candidate for the job. Okay, and those I want to just maybe give you some of those that have used, and I've maybe shared with some of my previous clients when it comes to this question. Now, one of the things that you may look at here is, of course, look out for a weakness that is not related to the job. Okay, for example, you can say, I have a challenge of saying no to additional tasks, or to maybe it could be saying no to additional tasks, or saying no to, okay, that would be one. One of the other things that you may also look at, because the reason why you say, like, let me first explain what I mean by saying no to additional tasks, is maybe when you're working, times when you may be concentrating on one thing, and then another person comes in and asks for, let's say, someone, could you help me with this task? You may be a person who finds it hard to say no to them. Okay, that is what I want to bring. That's the weakness that I want to bring, and it's a weakness in itself, because as an individual, you should have the confidence to say no when the no is actually required. So that could be one thing. And of course, when you're trying to respond, one of the things that you also need to have in mind is the other person wants to know, what are you doing about your weakness? Okay, don't just end on the weakness and say, this is my weakness. I have a weakness of time management. Okay, of course, no one wants to work with somebody who can't manage time. Okay, but if you're saying maybe one of the other things that you may also want to say is maybe I have a challenge of giving feedback. Okay, to people, especially when it's negative feedback. Okay, in that case, it's a challenge, it's a weakness, but it may not be so much. If you're an accountant, it may not be so much inclined to your job. And in the same way, you're going to give a response that adds a way you're working out towards it, towards improving it, and say, maybe I have a challenge, maybe, or I have a weakness of giving negative feedback. But over time, I've realized that it's important to give feedback, however bad it may be, because it helps the other person improve. And what I have done to improve on this weakness that I have taken maybe a short course on maybe interpersonal skills, or I have maybe opened up this to my supervisor, and my supervisor has helped me throughout the last 6 months to improve in this area. Okay, so find a way that you can bring up something and tell the other person that you're actually working towards it, and even give them why, two things: the weakness, why you think the weakness needs to be improved, that kind of realization. What are you exactly doing about that weakness? Okay, so that is very important for you to highlight there. And then also one of the other weaknesses you could speak about, if you're just a junior that is joining in, you could say maybe you have challenges or you have a weakness of, let's say, in the area of leadership, okay? Your role is not going to require you to take lead. This does not even have anyone person you're supervising, and you say, this could be, this is an area that I have weakness in, but I am trying to develop my leadership skills. I recently took on maybe a voluntary position in my Rotaract club or in my community or in my church, which I think will help me develop this skill to be able to add more value, especially even as I grow through my career, because I need this leadership skill. So somebody knows that this is a person who understands their weakness, but they're actually working towards improving, okay? So that is very important when it comes to weakness. So never say you don't have a weakness. Look out for a weakness that you think does not have in any way that it affects your recruitment process, okay? Yeah, you can even say, I have, maybe I'm an introvert, okay? Not say maybe an introvert, but let's say maybe if your role is not a role that is for people who are going to face clients, speak, and so on, you can speak about maybe your challenges in public speaking, okay? You have maybe stage fright, especially when you speak. And then you explain, it's not about the weakness, but you're explaining about what exactly are you doing towards, and say, maybe recently I've actually taken up a step to actually improve my public speaking skills. Maybe I've taken on this course. Maybe I've found a mentor who is helping me in this area. I'm actually practicing this even maybe within my community, within my church, within my club, whatever you're doing. So somebody knows, okay, this person has this skill, but they are growing, okay? Yeah. So somebody asks here, what about weakness of easily trusting people? I think and everyone would love to work with somebody who trusts other people, okay? So I would not encourage you to include this within your weaknesses, okay? Because yes, maybe your weakness, but it affects your relationship with people. One of the things that you're going to see, especially when you get into workplace, teamwork is the key ingredient, is the lifeblood of how organizations work. And teamwork cannot happen if there's lack of trust, okay? So I would advise you to look for something different than that, than trust. We have our weaknesses, but we don't want to bring these things that we think. I think the key principle here, before you speak of a weakness, ask yourself, if you are the person who is recruiting and this person told you that they have challenges. And also one of the things that you also need to highlight here is speak of a weakness that you have a solution to, that you are working on to improve, okay? Now, and that's why I'm saying is that when you're going for an interview, there are some questions that you should really expect that these questions will actually come, okay? There are those common questions that will actually be asked. So yours is to prepare and say, at least let me prepare about 2 weaknesses that I can present, okay? And yours is to look at the job that you're going for and see what are some of those weaknesses that are not so much around this. Of course, there are those key things that even if they are not listed, like time management, like working with others, you cannot say that I have challenges of working with others, okay? Because you're going to work in an organization. Then you also can't say maybe I have challenges of being taught by other people. You need to learn for you to grow within the organization. So you need to make sure that you make the right choices when it comes to that. One of the other questions that you asked is what motivates you, okay? Now, the question of what motivates you, sometimes they can also say what motivates you for this role, okay? And I remember one of the things that somebody asked in one of the WhatsApp groups was how to do let's say, motivational letter. Now, what motivates you, this person is not looking for anything outside what you're going to do, okay? You can say I'm motivated by achieving extraordinary results in my job, okay? Maybe I'm motivated by being able to add value to the organization that I work with or to the team that I'm working with. I'm motivated by seeing my company maybe attaining a given level in sales, okay? Maybe I'm motivated by, let's say, being able to submit work that is of high quality, okay? If let's say you're a person who is going to do a lot of report writing, so craft your motivation even around the job that you're going to do. Because just know that every conversation that you have with the interviewer is either making them say, we recruit you, or we need to look out for another candidate, okay? And remember, there are other people that they are interviewing. So this is like a test. Now, one of the things that, like I said, develop your confidence, but in the same way, don't feel like this is an exam. Don't feel like it's an interrogation, okay? Like you are at the police making a statement. And that's why, and this will definitely reflect. One of the things that I usually do, especially when it comes to developing confidence, you know, every time you go to an interview, desperate for the job, you always have challenges with building up your confidence, and you always have stage fright within there. You always feel like this is something that is life. It's like a lifetime. I don't know what to call it, but before you go to the interview, I think I want you to be positive and say, even if it doesn't work out, I still have a life to live and I can still move on, okay? So that is why when you going for the interview, the greatest confidence that you can build within yourself is understanding that this is not, even if it doesn't work out, okay? Even if it doesn't work out, you still have a life to live, okay? You can still move on, you can still survive, you can still, because when you go desperate, it means that even when they're asking you questions, you're going to feel a lot of pressure. Some people even sweat. They sweat all throughout, from the start of the interview to the end of the interview. And sometimes even you have certain things that you can actually communicate within the interview, but because you lack confidence, you have stage fright, you find yourself in situations where you cannot even speak, okay? Exactly clear words to the people that want to listen to your conversation, okay? So have that. Even times where you feel there's a lot of pressure. Actually, what I do is, once I get to the interview room like this, I try to breathe in, okay? I try to breathe in and breathe out, okay? And then I also make sure that I make the eye contact with the other people, okay? I also have the confidence, by the way. The reason why I've been invited for this interview is because the company believes that I have the right qualities they are looking for. So that alone should give me the confidence to know that this job interview is not an interrogation, but it's rather an interaction to make sure that they understand on whether I have the right skills or not. And it's the same thing that also happens with the online interviews. You're going to do, for example, a Zoom interview, or you're going to do a Microsoft Teams, or you're going to do a phone interview. Now, you also want to remain as professional as possible throughout the whole process. Some people even call their sisters to sit beside so they can ask. So they ask them a question, and this person gives you the response, and then you're able to answer. I've also had cases where there was actually one interview I was part of, and we had this candidate that kept on saying, "Do you hear me? Network, network." You get it. Every time, like they get to hear a question that is a bit, I think sometimes they would use it as a delaying tactic, maybe for them to Google some of these things and then be able to respond to them. Now, don't really be tempted to that, okay? Don't be tempted to have to search for answers from an external source to be able to respond, or have another person whom you actually sending through this question to respond for you. Do enough preparation. When you do enough preparation, I want to tell you that you'll actually have the confidence that is needed for the job. And enough preparation is around, never go for an interview when you don't know anything that relates to the job description. Like, you can't tell what there's an item on the job description that you don't, if, for example, you're going to, maybe you've never done project management and this role requires project management. Never go for one interview without reading more about project management. Take a lot of your time, like the way you prepare for an exam. Do a lot of preparation that increases your confidence, okay? Because when you have confidence, even you're able to flow through. And I talked of one time I shared and said, there are cases where you'll be asked questions where you not have clear answers, or you actually don't know. Some questions could be technical questions. Now, and sometimes it might be a case where you're not practicing, okay, in that area. For example, I think I went for one interview where they asked me about the latest IFRS standards, okay. Of course, I was in the NGO world, and we don't usually use so much. And they asked me about, I think this was, I think IFRS 9, okay? They asked me about more details about that standard. And I told them honestly, I know about the standard elementally, so I explained to them, okay, what I know. And I clearly told them that with my new role, I'll be able to take more study under this subject, okay, to be able to understand it more. You're basically trying to be honest to the other person, okay? Because instead of you going ahead to spend over 5 minutes speaking nonsense or lying to the other person, it's rather better you confess and say, I actually, for that, I don't know, okay? So the other person moves to the next question, okay? There are questions where you would want to try out, okay? And questions where they are basically questions that are open-ended in a way that any answer can be right, okay? So for those questions, you can try out, okay? For example, they can give you circumstances where they tell you, what would you do if you found out that your boss has embezzled an amount of money, or if your boss is dating maybe your colleague, or if you have a challenge with your boss, what would you do? Now, for such questions, really, you can't say, I don't know. You really have to give an opinion, because those are basically opinion questions. They are not technical questions, okay? And also asking you questions of, tell us about a scenario where they say, maybe where you had an issue with your boss and how did you resolve it? Find a scenario that you can easily remember at that time, and yeah, table it down with a lot of confidence. And at the end of the day, yours is to, this is what we call emotional intelligence. And I'll ask it here again. Every question that they ask you, yours is to use your emotional intelligence to ask yourself, what would I want to hear if I was the other person on the other side, okay? So that is the question you do. Some questions, by the way, will be questions that will be asked to test your emotional, how you handle your emotions, okay? And sometimes you may be pissed off by some of these questions, okay? Some questions may be personal. I one time went for an interview where I was asked about my parents, about what jobs they do, and also asked about my siblings, what exactly they do. I think another person even went ahead to ask me about how much they earn, okay? Because this was an Indian role and they wanted somebody who was going to work in the cash office. So I think maybe that was to use their analysis of whether, just in case maybe I made any shortages, somebody can actually bail me out. So I really remained professional even when I didn't take on the job, okay? I remained professional throughout. So remain professional throughout. Don't bring out your hunger, okay? And make sure that, yeah, you able to present. If you see that maybe they have gone a little really personal and you feel that maybe responding to that may have an effect on your current emotions, maybe even put you into tears, okay? Yeah, you may ask them to tell them that is very personal, and I don't feel free to speak about that, okay? The other person will understand, okay? but where you can easily respond to something, respond to it professionally. Okay, so that's very important. So one person asked about where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Okay, this question is usually asked people that yeah, anyone is asked this question, but usually comes especially with entry jobs. Okay, basically the reason why the other person is asking about this is they want to know your ambitions. Okay, and your ambitions also need to correlate with your company. You cannot say in the 5 years I see myself as a CEO, when in reality you cannot become a CEO. Okay, or I see, for example, if I'm an accountant, I'll say I see in the next 5 years, maybe I see myself as a finance manager. Okay, maybe maybe leading one of your finance teams in one of the branches. Okay, in the end of the day, you also don't want to speak about your 5 years to look like you'll be out of this organization. In most cases, the organization wants to see, what are you looking towards? Are you a person just looking for a chance to join this organization and you find yourself outside because you're just using it as something for the moment? They want to see, and that's why you see, find out more about the organization. One time I was recruited by one organization that asked me that question, and one of the responses I gave them, this organization was looking towards expanding, okay, to other East African countries. And when they asked me about the within 5 years, of course, I spoke about, I looked towards being able to grow within these organizations to becoming, let's say, a finance manager and be able to serve one of your subsidiaries in one of the East African countries. So somebody knows, oh, this person actually wants to be part of our strategy. Okay, so that's very important. Perida had her hand up. I would want to give you a chance to ask the question. Maybe, I don't know if it's part of what I'm discussing.
Yes, Samuel. Hello.
Yes, please go on.
Yes, Samuel. Hello, Samuel.
Proceed.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you clear.
Okay, then I wanted to ask, what if you are in an interview and they ask you why you have stayed for so many years in the same post?
Okay, thank you. All right. Now, why have you stayed in a role for all those years? I believe that even before you answer this question, you actually have a reason yourself from the other side, okay? But you also want to use still your emotional intelligence, that your response does not in any way affect the decision on whether to hire you or not, okay? Yeah. So the reason why people may remain in the same role for a long period of time is because of the nature of the organization, because of the organizational structure, okay? For example, I might be an administrator and there's no senior administrator in the organization. So I've been able to work in this organization for the last 5 years as an administrator, because according to the organizational structure within my department, it actually accommodates only one position, okay? But also, having been in the organization, for example, for the 5 years, one of the things that I may also want to bring ahead here is that you basically wanted to learn as much as you can learn within this role. And you can also boost it by saying, despite being in the same role, my responsibilities have actually changed over time, okay? And then you're able to bring in how your responsibilities and roles have changed over time. So it has been the same role, but there has actually been growth. So the change in responsibility may not only be in the work that you do, but also the the space that you serve. For example, if I'm an accountant, I can be an accountant today serving a branch, but then I can still remain an accountant, but this time I'm serving the whole head office, okay? Serving the whole. So think about how your job has transformed from when you started to where you are now. And that should be your selling point, okay, at the end of the day. And also bring it out that you're a person who doesn't want to, let's say, move from one place to the other because you're just looking for another maybe another role that helps you to grow. You actually wanted to use this role to learn as much as you can learn, and then be able to leave it at a point in time where you feel you have actually exhausted all that you can learn, and as well as being able to add value to the organization that you've been working with, okay? So that can be the way to play it. Bring in all the perspective of what exactly have you been doing and how your role has transformed, as well as bring in what could have been the reasons. And this could be around the organizational structure as well, okay? Susan has her hand up. Susan, you have something to share?
Yes, thank you, Samuel. In regards to what we're discussing right now, can't my staying at an organization for a very long time also exhibit the fact that I am loyal to the company? As in, there's a bit of, I'm not the kind who's moving place to place, that once you hire me, I will give my services for the next 3 years, unlike someone who will move after 6 months.
Yeah, that thanks for this. Thanks for the addition on that. Like I said, one of the things that you want to also highlight to them, that you're not a person who wants to just move to another organization just because of a new role. I think you're able to bring in the loyalty as well, okay? That can also be a plus. By the way, usually, even when within your career, always, especially as you continue to grow, in your first years may be okay, but when you get to a certain point in time, make sure that you at least stabilize on within your how long you stay within an organization, okay? At least you shouldn't stay below 1 year, okay? Because below 1 year, you still have responses to give to some interviewers who would want to understand, why did you move from this organization after a very short time, okay? So you need to be able to see how to improve on your CV in that perspective of not staying maybe a shorter time in an organization, okay? Yeah, so I hope that helps you, Perida. Can't they think staying longer in a role is a nanny performer? Now, the responses that you're able to give to them, okay? And also speaking about your achievements. Remember, you've already spoke about your achievements as well. If you were a nanny performer, you would actually have been pushed out, because no one would want to really work with somebody who is not performing well, okay? Yeah, so, and that's why I'm saying bring in the perspective that your role has actually transitioned over time, okay? In terms of pay, as well as in terms of responsibilities and roles. And based on the organization structure, if that is the case, if it's not the case, you may not bring in the aspect of the organization structure, but at least bring in the aspect of how this has grown. One of the other things that you may also bring in is the perspective of maybe you were holding this role. Maybe this was a role that at the time you were actually in school, maybe you were pursuing a given level of education, that this role favored that kind of work, or that kind of work-study balance, okay? So you didn't mind actually staying a little longer in the role, okay? But if you've been in the role for the last 5 years, the key principle is somebody should see progress, okay? Should see progress. And that is why even when you're responding, you're able to bring in that perspective of how you've progressed through that role, okay? Yeah. Somebody asked here, what is the best approach to answering the question of why are you leaving the organization? Okay. What is the best response of somebody responding of why are you leaving the organization? Now, in the same way, I know sometimes you have a reason why you're leaving the other organization, okay? But one of the things that you may want to present here is the perspective. If you've worked in an organization, for example, for 2 or 3 years, yours is to present the fact that you actually looking for a better challenge, okay? And also understanding that it's not about the organization you're leaving, by the way, okay? It's not about the organization you're leaving, but to the offer that you actually joining to, okay? So that is the approach that you need to highlight. What attracts you to this job, okay? Say, the reason why I'm leaving the other organization is because I feel this new role gives me a better ground to grow my career, okay? Or utilizes my experience and my qualifications in a much better way compared to the previous role, okay? You may also say, maybe when I looked at the job description, when I looked at the skills, I actually found myself as the best match for the role. And despite the fact that maybe in a very similar role the other side, I believe that I connect very well with this organization because this organization is maybe working in maybe this kind of area that I have maybe specialty in. Or I say, maybe if I'm an auditor and I'm now moving to the accounting field and say, maybe this is where my passion is. My passion is in the accounting environment, which I think that this role will actually help me to achieve, okay? So you not speak about ill about the organization of how they have treated you badly. And that's why you see every person you're going to work for knows that at one point in time you leave them, okay? So you don't want to bring in the aspects of, I have challenges with my boss, maybe this organization does not pay me well, maybe this organization, just you need to demonstrate that passion that you have towards this role that you actually want to join, okay? And make sure that you able to convince them in that line, okay? Yeah, so that's why it's important. Yeah, the career growth is also one of the other, but in terms of, you see, yes, the career growth is very key, but you also want to make sure one of the other things is you don't want to make it more of your side, it's more of a personal benefit, okay? You're joining because there's a better pay. You don't join an organization because they are paying you, they are going to pay you well. You don't want to speak about benefits in the interview, okay? Unless that conversation comes up. You don't join the organization because you're broke, okay? You don't join the organization because maybe the project is ending and you feel like this is somebody doesn't want to see you being desperate, okay? So that is why you need to make sure that whatever responses you're giving are responses that give a win-win, okay? So when I speak of my connection to the job, my experience and qualifications being in a way that they're a best match to the role, somebody feels like, okay, this person is bringing, and maybe saying, I recently earned my master's and I feel that this job will give me more managerial experience and maybe also a ground to develop a better career, okay? Or maybe I would love to, from a time I finished campus, I always looked out to work with a non-for-profit organization because it works well within my values, okay? So find a way that makes the other person to think that you're actually thinking about them as well. It shouldn't be about you, but about the role you're going to do, about the organization you're going to work for, okay? Some other people may want to prompt you to really ask about the previous organization, but make sure you remain as much as professional as possible. Actually, even speak good about the other organization and say, I have had a very good career in the previous organization, and my boss has been very supportive in developing me. And I have actually grown from just being as an assistant to becoming, let's say, a senior accountant or a senior engineer, whatever it could be. And I think it's now time for me to take on a better challenge, which this job actually gives me, okay? So in that line, other person feels like, okay, yeah, I think this person is not just joining because of our good pay, or maybe because we are A, B, C, and D. This person actually believes that this role will actually give them maybe a better, yeah, maybe a better career growth or a better career, like, okay, yeah. So that is what I can basically say about that question, okay. Somebody asked, can we handle such technical questions mostly concerning with bosses? I meant, how can we handle such? I said, when I commented on technical questions, the best way to prepare for technical questions, I'm again going to emphasize, is understand what your next job will entail, and that is from the job description. Of course, even cascade beyond the job description to look at what could they ask, okay? And I want to give you an example that the role that you're going to do, you can also find out from people who are working in the organization and ask them, what does it really entail? What exactly do they do, okay? And when we are speaking about interviews, we're not only speaking about the, let's say, only the verbal interviews, okay? Also, the written interviews play a bigger role, okay, in your success of getting a job. And for my friends that are preparing for for example, for written interviews, in most cases, apart from aptitude tests that would come with aspects of English, maybe some mathematics, maybe comprehension, and so on, most of the questions will come around the technical aspects of the job, okay? So that's why you want to take some time to, at least if you're going for maybe a role in the tax department, yours is to understand what are the latest tax changes, okay, tax amendments, okay? If you're going for an accounting role, you want to also understand what are maybe the latest standards. You need to look at some key elements, okay, of that interview to make sure that at least by the time I actually go for this interview, I have some level of technical competence, especially if you've never been in that career. Take time to understand. If you're jumping from, for example, from a private sector to NGO world, take your time to understand how they work, okay? And this could be somebody who is maybe working for this organization, or somebody who is working in another organization that you think is doing a similar kind of work than the role you're going for. In there, you're able to understand what exactly entails, okay? So that's why it's important. And if you're going for an interview that is just after the written interview, okay? Now, in most cases, sometimes some of the questions that have appeared in the written interview will find sometimes their way into the other side of the verbal interview. So make sure that if you're done with one set of interview, anything that you didn't get right, anything that didn't go well, you at least have an idea about, okay, before you go for the next interview, okay? So it's very important. And like I said, if you don't know anything, like something, and you really feel you don't have any answer to it, be honest about it. Because all these things that we know in most of the interviews, it's not about your technical competence as per se, especially for certain jobs, okay? Because they know that you're going to work under manager, you're going to be trained, it's an entry job, you've never done some of these things. So somebody is trying to confirm that on a percentage of 100%, can you be able to at least remember? Because they know that at least you'll be able to use it. Some questions may even ask you to calculate some things even without giving a calculator. Somebody knows the dynamics that you're in, okay? But yours is to give them the confidence that despite the dynamics that I'm in, I actually have a greater chance to actually be the best candidate for your role, okay? So that is something that you need to make sure that you're taking home, okay? So that is very important for you to have in mind, But on the overall, as just in case you have any question, you can still ask that. On the overall, what I have really learned, especially around interviews, and what if there's anything that I want to leave you with, is your confidence matters a lot in the interview, because that will help you to be able to express yourself and be able to give the right responses and able to reflect to the other person that you may be the person they need to look out for. Okay, so build your confidence and don't show that you're desperate. Okay, and have that mindset of knowing that whatever things go, whatever way things may go, I still have an opportunity to move on with life. Okay, that alone helps. And where you can also to build your confidence, by the way, is get to the interview room or venue. If you're doing an online interview, find yourself in an environment where you're going to do the interview. Maybe you have the phone is well charged. You have your internet, make sure that you have the internet. You load enough bundles. You don't want to go through an interview and you're getting off because of data. You need to make sure that your phone is charged. If you're using a phone, if you're using a laptop, make sure it is charged. Make sure the environment that you're going to do the interview from is an environment that is noisy free. Okay, and it's an environment. Some people will ask you to switch on your cameras. Okay, so make sure that you're in a comfortable position to even switch on your camera, just in case somebody wants to be able to see whom they're actually interviewing. Okay, so prepare all these things in advance and find a comfortable place. You can also test some of these gadgets that you want to use to make sure that in the place you are in, there's good network, because this is something for you. Okay, and just make sure that at least you're prepared at 30 minutes. You're just there refreshing yourself, going through whatever you have, your job description. Reflect if you submitted a CV that you think you don't understand, like there are certain things that you included in the CV that you need to be able to defend. Make sure that at least you have an understanding of all those. Okay, and then the other thing also is to do, I told you about making sure that also when you get to the place of the interview, also have conversations with the people that you meet, greet them. Okay, sometimes you may find somebody whom you actually who is actually going to be part of the panel. In most cases, because we get in early, especially for morning interviews, this person finds you at the reception and you even don't say hi to them. You find yourself in circumstances where this person is going to interview you and you have not even made that connection. I'll give you an example. One time I was going to do an interview, and this interview was at another level. It was you needed to use a lift to go to the interview ground. So what exactly happened is I find this lady and we're only two there. Okay, so I was able to, of course, to greet them. I was professional. I greeted them, and then we moved. Surprisingly, when we got to the level where I was getting off, she was also getting off, and there she actually happens to be part of the panel. Okay, and that alone for me to build confidence, because this is a person I'd found in the lift and we had greeted each other, so it helped me. Okay, so it's the same way. Yeah, find some people even go ahead to even have cameras to see what is happening with the people that you are going to interview. Okay, because that is the first ground for you to demonstrate some of your interpersonal skills as well. Okay, so make sure that you're building that rapport. When you reach early, you even able to look around and see some of those hanged frames that have values. There are even sometimes you can find some manuals or previous reports of the organization within at the reception. You look at them. Yeah, you're able to easily build your confidence with just a few things. Okay, somebody gives an example here. I went for an interview for the role of principal internal auditor with UBOS, but written interview were quite off. They brought in structured questions set by ISPAL for advanced accounting. Oh, wow, okay. Of course, like I said, when it comes to the written interviews, it's usually technical work, okay? And you don't know which angle the recruiter may want to go to, okay? Especially for my friends that have been in the career for a very long period of time, and maybe you last went to school for some time, try to just go back. Some of these resources, by the way, you can even find them online, okay? At least these are common things that you can find online. Try to do some, at least prior preparation on those technical aspects around the job, okay? And if you're able to at least do some preparations in one way or the other, you increase your chances. If you get to the exam or to the interview and the things that have come really don't, there are things that you are facing maybe challenges with. One of the positive things that I want to encourage you is the same way you've seen that exam or that interview is the same way also maybe 2 or 3 people are actually seeing the same, okay? So if you can give it your best, knowing that after that maybe you can have a chance. Some interviews after the written does not determine the verbal, okay? After the written, you go for the verbal. So make sure that you now put most of your energies when it comes to the verbal interview, okay? Susan speaks about aptitude tests. Yes, aptitude tests are a horror that you might include it there because of what they're actually looking out for, okay? And what I usually advise when it comes to aptitude tests, by the way, okay? Now, some people, when they tell you that you have aptitude tests, some people think that they're only going to bring English, mathematics, and so on. But sometimes the aptitude tests could also include the technical work, okay? Could also include technical questions, okay? Because just know that your aptitude tests, the aptitude test is testing your ability to perform the task and being able to react maybe to different situations at work. So you don't want to only limit yourself onto the mathematics. Of course, the mathematics, the English, you can actually find free aptitude test questions and answers online. And I want to tell you that in some cases, these things are actually repeated. Okay, sometimes they just bring you things, they bring you different triangles, and then they bring another one triangle, and then maybe they want you to match which of the triangle resembles the other. So sometimes when you do some prior, at least preparation, some examples, there's a way they boost, it's like the way preparing for an exam. There's a way it helps you build in terms of your confidence, but as well as it boosts your thinking. Aptitude tests, most of them are around aspect of thinking, okay? So that is why it's good to make sure that you do some preparations. You can, for technical things, you can find these materials either through textbooks, either through online, either requesting these things from your colleagues who are doing similar kind of work. You can ask them for templates. If you think maybe they may bring you a budget to prepare, ask for a budgeting template, look at it. If they ask you maybe certain things about maybe reporting, ask for them. Standards, find them, okay? Yeah, so that's very important. And for the other rest of aptitude tests, there are lots of resources that you can find online for aptitude tests, okay? So just Google aptitude tests. There's even a site that is called www.aptitudetest.com, okay? You can find lots of aptitude tests that you can try to go through, prepare your mind, okay? Someone asks here, is it advisable to go and take a CV to an organization that hasn't advertised? I want to say with that it costs you nothing, okay? It costs you nothing if you think that that organization has the job that you're looking out for, okay? And if you think that there could be an opportunity in that organization, you take it, okay? Sometimes what happens is, like, there's some times where these people have maybe one person just resigns immediately, and maybe they may need somebody who can easily replace. So by taking your CV there, or by sending your CV, may not even be taking it there, but you can, if you can find the HR addresses, you can also send it to them and ask them that just in case there's an opportunity that fits within your skills, qualifications, and experience, you open to working with them. Sometimes you even deliver your CV, and they have actually been looking for somebody within those kind of specialty. You get it, and then they say they maybe invite you for the interview and so on. So you lose nothing. You know, me, that is one of the key principles, that in everything that I want to do, I ask myself, do I lose anything? Just like applying for a job that I don't have, let's say, experience to, or I don't have the qualifications they are looking out for, I lose nothing with applying for the job. And in one way or the other, if I think that I don't have the master's, but I actually have the degree and I have some level of experience, I'll give it a shot. I'll apply. I lose nothing. Okay, that is the principle. But when you speak of this, you remind me of something that you need to understand when it comes to interviews, is sometimes they would not ask you to carry your academic credentials or carry your CV and so on. Some organizations will actually ask you to carry these things, but just in case they don't ask you, please carry them, okay? Carry your original documents to the interview, and also make sure that even the way you carry them, don't just carry them with that envelope that has lasted for the last 5 years and just put in your documents. Remember, everything is, somebody's reading whatever you're doing, or whatever you're carrying, or the way you look like, okay? That is why you see, you want to make sure that you remain as, the impression that you show to them is an impression that you would want to see if you were the person on the other side, okay? So make sure that you actually do enough preparations of those documents. There are some document files that you can find on different stationery shops that can help you carry those documents rightly, okay? And make sure that at least when you're delivering these things, even when someone tells you, please give us your academic documents, you're not just removing them from that old envelope, you're removing them from a professional. Somebody sees a lot of seriousness with you. Because remember, if you're an accountant, you're going to do a lot of filing and what. So it starts with your documents. If your documents don't, the way they look like, they don't really represent somebody who is organized, that will have a certain impact. It will affect on the perspective. At the end of the day, for interviews, we are trying to build a kind of some perspective that we want other person to do what, to take from us, okay? So that is very important to understand. Even sometimes when you get to the interview, and they maybe ask you, would you like something to drink, or would you like something to drink? In most cases, maybe there's water, there's let's say maybe there's coffee. Ask you, would you like coffee? Would you like? In most cases, I would advise you to really take water, okay? Because ask for water. Don't say I don't like, okay, I don't want. You can take water. Or if you feel you're fine, you can say I'm fine, okay? But I just take water, get water, because that water helps you to, because you're going to speak a lot, just like the way I'm speaking here. This is over, let's say, 2-hour session. You want to make sure you have, and it's also a breather. Even when they ask you a hard question, taking that water is helping you to take some time to think about the response, okay? So that happens, that can happen, okay? And then also, one of the other key things that I may also want to highlight here is make sure as you prepare, pre-prepare for some of the common questions that may be asked. Questions like, tell us about yourself, why should we hire you? Questions around your weaknesses, questions around your strengths. Like somebody asked about weaknesses. One of the other things that you need to also prepare around is your strength as well. Now, your strengths should also align to the job. And how you do that is go and look at the job description, and see the key skills that are needed for this job, okay? And the key skills that are needed for this job should reflect into your strengths. For example, if the job requires, for example, it's a client-facing job, it's maybe a marketing job, bringing the perspective of having good public speaking skills comes very handy. If it's an accounting job, bring in things like analytical skills, okay? Could come in a good way. Things like maybe one of the strengths is you work well with other people, you have good interpersonal skills, you're a great team player, and some of these strengths you not basically saying, you're not just saying these things to just maybe, I don't know how to say it, but you can back them up by why do you think you have good analytical skills, okay? So don't just end on the strength and say, I'm good at public speaking. Tell us about why do you think you're good at public speaking? Maybe you just, maybe you're a leader in one of the maybe Rotaract clubs, or you a leader in church, or your previous role has had that element in it. Find a way to defend that strength before even they ask you, okay? Just like the way it is for the weakness, that when they ask you for the weakness, you don't just say, I'm poor at time management, and end there and think they'll ask you, how are you improving it? Make sure that you say, I'm poor at this, I have this weakness, but I understand that this weakness has a greater impact on my success within my career. And for that reason, I have done A, B, C, and D to actually work upon it, okay? And I believe that I'm actually there, even able to give them some of the progress that you've made on that. So that's very important. And one of the other things that you also may also need to take into consideration when it comes to interviews, or when it comes to responses, there is a key question that is asked, and this question is also a change maker. Like, it is a question that reflects about your personality. And this question is of, do you have any other question for us? That question is a very common question in interviews. Just like the way, tell us about yourself, things like what are your weaknesses, what are your strengths, what do you bring on this job, okay? Why are you leaving the other side? The job of, do you have any question for us, is a very common question. I think about 85% of the interviews will actually have this. Not even 85, I think about 90, okay? Now, why does this person ask? I know most people, because you've already been stressed by the rest of the questions, you just say, I don't have any question. Some other people may want to say, when will I hear from you? Some other people may want to say, maybe how much do you pay for this role? Many people have their own questions. Definitely, you always have some questions, but you don't want to say, I don't have any question. And you also don't want to ask any kind of question that reflects in one way or the other, has an impact onto your recruitment, okay? And you also don't want to ask a question that makes you feel like you've not done your good research, okay? Somebody asks a question and says, could you tell me about your products? And you want to work for an organization, but you don't understand their products, okay? That is something that may affect you. Some of the questions that I usually ask are things like, one, how does my career look like in such an organization, okay? Now, that question, why it's helpful is that somebody will see you as somebody who wants to grow within the organization, who is not just coming to be there for 1 year and leave. Somebody is looking at you as a person who has ambitions to join this organization and move with it, okay? So that is one of the questions you can ask. And one of the other questions that you may also ask is, about the plans for the company. Okay, you can say I was able to find more about your mission as well as your vision as an organization. Maybe just to understand when it comes to your next 5 years as a company, what are some of the things that you're looking at? If it's an NGO, you can ask them about their key projects. Like you can actually bring, you bring a question in a perspective that shows the other person that you've done your research very well. You say that I was able to find out that you actually executed this project, okay, in this area, A, B, C, and D. I would like to know about some of your achievements that you got from this project. Now, all these questions you're asking are questions that build connection, but also sell you even much more. Okay, you may not have done good on some of the previous questions, but these last questions could make this person feel like, this person. Remember, first impression and last impression. Now this is your last impression. Okay, so you want to make sure that this person doesn't feel like this person. Okay, so such a question would also helpful. What are your plans maybe over the next 5 years? What is your strategic kind of vision as an organization? And also, if you have understood, maybe learned more about the organization, like in terms of projects, like in terms of maybe markets they are serving, or you say maybe I'm aware you just recently launched this product, okay? Then you're able to craft your question around there and say maybe what are some of the challenges so far that you faced during the launch of this product? Maybe if you're applying for marketing role, okay? Your questions should have an inclination on the job that you're going to do as well, okay? One of the other questions you could also ask is, what would you need me to concentrate on in the first 30 days if I'm successful for this role? So somebody in the role is able to bring in what exactly, that also helps you to give you an insight of actually the role, okay? What would you need me to concentrate on in the first 30 days if I'm successful for this role, okay? The other thing that you may also want to ask, something very similar to that, is what advice would you give to the successful candidate who wants to do well in this role? Now that alone makes other person feel like, oh, okay, this person is a person who always loves to do well, okay, who has great ambitions, okay? So it's important. If, for example, sometimes it may also be a ground for you to know more about the role, especially where you now see that you've done very good in the interview, and you feel like you may also ask for, say, maybe is this a new role that maybe has just been created, or they have actually been somebody previously in this role, okay? Maybe that's what you may want to know about, okay? You may also maybe want to ask them about, maybe about more about the team, okay? In terms of this role might be a finance officer role, and you may want to find more about the rest of the team, okay? Like maybe knowing the team that you actually work with, just in case you're a successful candidate, okay? But all in all, when it comes to that last question, yes, please.
Coach, can you repeat the previous point you noted before about the last one, the second last you talked about?
In terms of the question?
Yeah, there is a question you talked about before the last one, the second last. After, what advice would you give to successful candidates if they've gone through, if they are to do well in the organization? Then there is another one you talked about before you mentioned the last one.
Was it about the strategic plan for the company over the next few years?
I think
that could also be one of those. Could also be like, what would my career look like in this organization? That is also one of the questions that you may ask. So they're able to tell you that you once you join as a finance officer, you'll be able to grow to become maybe a senior finance officer and then be able to now become like a manager. Okay, that could be one of those. You could also ask about the team. Okay, the team, how the team is. Okay, the team within your department. You could also ask if this is a new role. Okay, or there has actually been another person in this role. Okay, I don't know if that was the question. Basically, when you're asking, just find what you think are your best 2 questions. Okay, basically your best 2 questions that you should ask. Don't ask many of the questions. Just get like 2 questions, but yours is to make sure at least you ask the question, and yours is also to make sure that the questions in one way also show you as somebody who even adds more value to them. Okay, like I said, if it's possible, you could start from the perspective of I'm aware you recently launched this product. Okay, or I'm aware you recently won this grant if it's an NGO, or I'm aware you, don't say I read about it on your website, say I'm aware that you're one of the leading companies that are in supply of solar energy systems in Uganda. Okay, what has been your experience working in this environment? Okay, so somebody knows that you have that perspective. And like I said, find things according to your role, according to your industry, find things that works well with that. Okay, yeah. So I hope that is helpful to you. Okay, I think somebody was asking about what kind of questions should you ask. So those ones I've tried to answer those. Do we have any other question? And that question may not be about interviews, but could also be a clarification on what I've highlighted even in previously. Do we have any? Okay, that you would want me to comment about? Yeah, as the questions comes, I think one of the things that I want to highlight here is when you're going for an interview, okay, yours is to understand that you have passed through the first selection point, okay, which is the shortlisting. And yours is to also know that you still have competition, other people that you're competing with, okay, for this opportunity. But that alone should not make you feel like you're desperate or you're in what capacity. Yours is to know that if I'm going for this job interview, I have what it takes to be hired, and that's why I've been shortlisted, okay? And then also understanding that all that you're going to do in the interview will actually make a room for you or actually close a door for you, okay? So that is why you need to give it your best, remain professional as possible, put in what you think is your best professional attire, and make sure at least you get there in a position where you're comfortable, okay? During the times of when you get to the interview, sometimes previously before COVID, they would even give you handshakes, so you're able to make the handshakes with the people who are part of the panel. But if that is not the case, because of the situation we are in, just make sure you get there. If you're asked, they will definitely, the first thing you do is greet them as you enter the room. Just enter. If they say, please come in, so you enter, you get just near there and able to say, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, or good afternoon, or good morning, whatever time it is. Make sure that you start with that and do it with a confident voice, okay? Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, okay? Then they will respond to you. And then also one of the other things is as you get there, they will definitely give you, let's say, a chance to sit and say, please have a seat. Please, before they give you a seat, don't sit, okay? It's professionalism, because the seat you may going to sit to is not your seat. There's another person actually who will sit there. Okay, so that's why you need to be shown a seat. And then also make sure that when you are there, okay, one of the things that is very common is that the interviewers may want to introduce themselves. Okay, just the same way you tell them about you, they'll first introduce themselves. If you can pick some of their names, please make sure you do. Okay, and be able to have some of those. Sometimes some people may even go with maybe some notebooks. Okay, maybe just a small notebook where somebody can note just a few things. Yeah, and anyone who is, because it's an interaction, and it's not a crime for you to, you're not going to look at the book for answers, but you're trying to note some of the things, because they're going to say, for example, I'm Samuel Ibanda and I'm the head of finance in this organization. Another person will tell you, I'm Sarah Mugisha, I'm the head of marketing. I'm this. You're human. You cannot put all these things in your head. Okay, so feel free to note some of these things, or if you don't have this courage there, at least pick some of the name. Pick the first names. Okay, you don't have to pick the second name as well, but pick the first names. Okay, so that when somebody asks you, but also when somebody asks you a question and you don't hear it very well, don't be afraid to ask for their pardon. Okay, it costs you nothing because it's professional. You don't want to respond to a question that you've not understood. Ask their pardon, and then they're able to respond to you. Be free with them. Don't feel like, these guys, if I act like this, like I said, life moves on even when you don't get that job. Okay, so make sure that you have that in mind. I know that I still have other opportunities to try out elsewhere, and remain as professional as possible throughout the whole interview. Don't cross with people who are interviewing you, and where you feel maybe something is personal, like I indicated, you can excuse yourself and bring it to them that is very personal. Okay, that's very personal to you. But sometimes, like I said, they may want to ask you personal questions because your role may have that factor in it. Okay, maybe some asks you, are you married? Maybe because the role may require somebody who is married. Okay, even if you're from a divorce or you're from a heartbreak, this may emotionally affect you. But I want to say that this alone should not limit you from saying I'm single, I'm engaged. Okay, so that is what I would love to share around that. Like any other thing, it's a process to learning. And that's why I encourage you that don't just wait for the time when you want to move to find a new job that you start for applying for these jobs. The more interviews you do, the more confidence that you build. Okay, the more confidence that you build for these interviews, and the more you're able to prepare for your next best interview that will actually find you into the organization. Okay, but above all, do your preparations. Make sure that you're preparing as much as possible before you can actually get there. And then also find things that you think the other person wants to hear. Okay, for example, if somebody asks you, tell us about yourself, you don't have certain kind of experience, don't go to the side of say, I don't have experience. Okay, say I don't have experience in finance, but you're applying for a finance job. Instead of saying I don't have, okay, find the positive side of it. Okay, and say I have this A, B, C, and D. I have these skills and have these qualifications. Okay, like I said, if you don't have certain, for example, you don't have a master's, you don't say I don't have a master's. Say what you have, okay, and what you think can cover up for what you think you don't have. Okay, yeah, and in the same way, like we said, remain as much open as possible. Don't just say I don't have any weakness. Bring in the weaknesses, like I've given you examples of weaknesses, so that the other person knows that you're human just like them. Okay, yeah, so that is something that we need to take home and continuously improve on, continuously see how we can basically become much better, prepare for those questions that we think don't miss for such interviews, and so on, and also see what kind of questions to ask. Okay, yeah. So thanks so much. It's already 6 minutes past 9. Okay, it's already 6 minutes past 9. So I would want to end this conversation here, and I will be taking any other extra questions going forward on the WhatsApp group. That is why I've added you on that WhatsApp group. So when you're able to ask a question there, I can either do a written response or I can do an audio response. Okay, at least for the next time when we are together. So don't be afraid. If there is anything I've left out, I'll be sharing with you. Some of you shared with me your CVs. So the next thing that I'm going to do, I've been a bit caught up preparing some of my students who have exams. But one of the things that I'm going to be doing from today, going forward, we're going to look at your CVs, the ones you've done. I'm going to look at your LinkedIn profiles, those that are able to share with me their links, and those that will also share with me the links. Then I also, once I've looked at your CVs, I also share with you the templates. Remember, I first wanted to look at them before you put them into the templates. So I'll also share the templates with you, okay? And then we'll also share with you other material that I also had promised, okay? But the group that I've put you to is a group for us to keep in touch. It's not just about us coming here, having this 4 days kind of conversation. I would love us to continue keeping in touch even as we pursue this journey. You know that it's not a 1 month, it's not a 1 day journey, basically. Okay, it's not a 1 day journey, it's a process, it's a continuous journey. And I want us to continue with the same. Somebody asked, are we done with this training? We are done with the 4 days training that we highlighted there, but the mentorship continues for the rest of for at least for the next 1 month plus, okay, as we continue to be together. Okay, so that is something that I would want to tell you. And in case you've been part of this and you have a personal, or you're going for maybe you need any kind of guidance along the way there, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll be able to answer you. I usually like when sometimes you open up, share some of your challenges on the WhatsApp group. If you don't feel offended, I'm able to offer a general response that helps even the rest of the other people. Okay, yeah, I know some of you connect with me on different other platforms. I do other kind of things. Okay, I do other kind of things that really can help you. Somebody says yesterday's summary in brief, just in 2 minutes. I really did a summary when it came to what we did yesterday, but just to highlight something very small there. Whatever we are doing today and whatever we have done in the past years is about growth, okay? And that's what we talked about yesterday. It's about growth. It's about not accepting to just remain the same over and over time, but always aspire to grow. And this growth does not only happen within the companies we are working in, but also the organizations that we want to aspire to work to. Like I said, you have an average of 20 to 30 years in employment, okay? Active years in employment. You want to make sure that after every 5 years, you're progressing. You're either progressing in your role, you're either progressing in your salary, you're either progressing in responsibilities, but you're progressing in one way or the other, as well as your career ambitions as well. And like I said, as a person, have career goals, have career. What is your career ambition? What is your vision? What do you want? Where do you want to be? And like I said, that should be your number one driving factor to even the organizations you work for, to even the positions you take on, to even the, let's say, even the organizations you have to reject, okay, to work for. So that's very important that you have that life plan to make sure that you're not just being driven by the wind, but you have something that is driving you, okay? So I'll continue to give more sharings. I usually do a lot of free videos, especially on my YouTube channel. I even share this within the group. So we shall still remain in touch. So I'll be able to give you more guidance I think my whole desire is to see you guys grow, to see you guys benefit from your careers, because you've put in a lot. You went to school, you studied, you've earned those degrees, you've put in money to even attend some of these things. So you really need to grow, okay? So make sure that you reach out for any challenges and we can see how to, share experiences. It's not that I know everything. Sometimes I also learn from you, and I've learned from you throughout the session. So I believe that we can continue to learn from each other, advise each other. And if there's anything that you want somebody to give you a perspective on, like for example, I think we had a case here when Susan wanted a perspective on maybe a salary negotiation, and we're able to think through and see how best maybe can this be fronted, okay? And what are some of the things that we need to reflect upon, okay? Yeah, so that is what I can say. I want to say thank you so much for keeping this here, for making sure that you attend all these sessions. Let's continue the conversation on the WhatsApp. I know some people have contacted me and have not been responsive, especially during these days, because I'm a bit caught up. But at least I believe we'll be able to get more time for you, and feel free to always reach out with the message. I'll always be able to revert, even if it's late, at least I promise to. Otherwise, thanks so much, and I wish all the best, even as whatever you try to do to implement what we have studied, okay? So thank you so much. I would love to continue connecting with you. So feel free to always reach out, and let's see how we can continue. So thanks so much, and I wish you all the best, guys. Bye-bye.